Hello, and welcome to a Loverboy821 video. This will be the first YouTube video that I've done in a while that hasn't been just a clip from my stream, and this is a pretty simple video. See, I'm making this in between. I'm going to be making I'm going to be doing another part of our Pokemon Red Nuzlocke stream tonight. As of the day I'm recording this, I'm recording it at 1 in the morning. But I really like tier lists. It's just that the last tier list I did ended up being like an hour and a half long, and I was like, okay, I need to do a smaller tier list, and with easier reasoning. So since I'm doing Pokemon Red right now, I've decided that I'm going to rank the original 151 Pokemon. You can see at the bottom that it after Mew, it has the Megas that came with the original 151. I'm not going to be ranking the Megas in this video, because I'm ranking the original 151 on 3 principles. Firstly, their designs, and that's going to be very subjective, but it will be how much do I like the design? And for the ones I either really like or really hate, I'll explain why I just love them so much. Second, I'll be ranking them on how good they were in when they came out. So like how good were they in Gen 1 in red, blue, and yellow. And then the last metric I'll be ranking them on is how well they've held up. Like how well are they still, like how good are they? How well have they adapted? How usable are they in the current generations? And because of the last two things, none of the Megas make sense for. Yeah, it just didn't make sense to do the Megas. So I'm gonna just go through. I've explained what I'm ranking them each on. Bulbasaur, and I want to clarify that Bulbasaur, when I'm ranking them individually. So like how much I like Charizard or how much I like Venusaur won't affect Bulbasaur or Charmander respectively. So I think Bulbasaur is adorable, and it still does really well in Little Cup. Obviously, it had a lot of trouble in Gen 1 because it was weak to Psychic, and if you were weak to Psychic, you got bodied. But then it's also weak to the other two most prevalent attacking types, being Ice, because Blizzard's everywhere, because it's 90% to hit, and Earthquake, which is everywhere. And it's still everywhere. I feel like I would rank him lower because if Little Cup didn't exist, he would not be usable at all, and it would be just how high can he get when his metric of adorableness is the only thing that's high. Unfortunately, Ivysaur doesn't have the same thing going for it, so it's going to be a C. And we're going to call Venusaur a B tier, also. Venusaur is easily the weakest of the 3 starters, in my opinion. And I hasten to clarify that I understand that competitively speaking, it has a better niche than either Charizard or Blastoise, at least until Charizard started getting all of the love from Game Freak starting in Gen 6. But it just doesn't. It is like, if the first 3 starters were a band, it would be playing the bass. It is the backup singer. It is like I'm not like other girls. I picked Bulbasaur as my starter instead of Charizard or Blastoise. Like, Charizard and Blastoise are Coke and Pepsi respectively. And, Venusaur is like good enough, like a step above store brand stuff, but like it's not competing with either of them. That being said, Charmander is going to also get B tier because it's fucking adorable, but it's arguably even worse off than Bulbasaur as far as actually fighting goes. Charmeleon is going to get also B tier, and then Charizard's easily an A tier. Charizard would probably be higher. See, here's the thing. Charizard's design, impeccable. How well has Charizard held up? He's actually gotten much stronger as the generations go on. He was not good originally. In Red, he was too slow and defensively tapped to be able to do anything. In Silver, despite being fast enough to hold up, he didn't do enough damage to deal with the bulky metagame at the time. In Gen 3, he just got destroyed by the current metagame of everyone has Sandstorm because freaking Tyranitar is the top Pokemon. And, sorry, let me move the screen down a little bit. And then in Gen 4, they introduced Stealth Rock, and suddenly Charizard was completely unusable. In Gen 5, he was okay on Sun teams, but Sun was definitely inferior to both Rain and Sand during the Weather Wars. So he's really only been good since he's only really been like unironically competitively good since Gen 6. And because his megas made him, obviously a mega is really good. But, his megas weren't so good that, like, if you were specifically picking on how good they were, you probably weren't picking Mega Charizard as the one mega on your team. It's just that because, like I mentioned, his design is so amazing, everyone's like, oh, I want a Mega Charizard, they're so cool. I know this is probably predictable, but Squirtle is also a B tier. I consider Wartortle a B tier. Blastoise is also an A tier. Blastoise is probably stronger than Charizard in the first 5 generations. Also, he's effective against Charizard, so it's a little bit unfair to say that, I think. But I think overall, he's more useful. I think design-wise, he's really just as strong as Charizard. Even if I like Charizard better, I know just as many people like Blastoise better, and I can't fault them for that opinion, I mean, he just looks awesome. I loved him in Stadium when he used Hydro Pump and he shot him out of his cannons. He was a very, very good, just a really solid Mon. I feel like Caterpie and Metapod are both D tier. They're both essentially useless. They're a catching tutorial. They only exists for 7 levels, only exists for 3 levels, or 2 levels, rather. Butterfree, on the other hand, I think is a lot stronger of a Pokemon. But they are Butterfree for 90 levels of their, lifespan. I'd be tempted to give Butterfree B tier. I think I will, actually. Because they were able to learn Psychic back when Psychic was boss, making them way better in Gen 1. Defensively, they obviously got destroyed by flying and fire and ice and all that shit. But how early you get them, how easy they are to evolve, and honestly, I understand it's just a butterfly, and simplicity is one thing. But I just enjoy this simplicity. We're going to give Weedle C tier, Kakuna D tier. I'm absolutely giving Beedrill A tier. Almost entirely based on its design. Of all of the Pokemon up here, it is the coolest looking one to me. Of the ones currently on the list. It is complete garbage until Gen 6, where it gets a Mega. Its Mega is fucking amazing, and I love it. Not only the design of it is amazing, but also it was legitimately incredibly good. So for Gen 6 and 7, He was legitimately not a wasted spot. But honestly, just on design alone, even if he continued to be completely worthless for the entire longevity of the Pokemon series, he's still getting a B tier in my book, at the very least. Pidgey, Pidgeotto, and Pidgeot, or Pidgeotto and Pidgeot, as I think they're actually pronounced, DDC. Pidgeotto is a C. Pidgeotto sucks. He just does. He sucks originally. His Mega's fine, but it's like no one would ever choose to have that as their Mega, because again, you only get one Mega slot. So I can't even count that in his favor. He is a C tier exclusively off of design and prestige of being like the premier bird flying you around Kanto. Like that is exclusively how he ducks the D tier. Rattata, Raticate, both D tier. I think Raticate is actually underappreciated. He's a lot stronger than a lot of people give him credit for, and I don't think they've grown on me over the years. I really didn't like them when I was a kid, but you know, they're everywhere. They're not strong enough to compete anymore, certainly, and they were merely okay in Gen 1. And mind you, Gen 1, the strongest physical attacking type was normal type, with the way that the Hyper Beam could be reused if you knock someone out. So they had a potentially 225 power move they could body people with for no cost after weakening them with a body slam, which already could cause paralysis, which was already one of the strongest statuses. And they had a Stab Explosion, which already halved their defense. They didn't have Explosion. I was just like, oh, Explosion was normal. But no, Rattata didn't have Explosion, so that's not really... Anyway, they had a lot of tools at their disposal. And even utilizing all of those, they were so under-equipped to compete, because first gen has so many really good normal types that they just couldn't compete. Fearow and Spearow are D tier. They if someone was into birds enough that they could consider Pidgeot Coke, then Fearow is Pepsi. If you get what I'm saying. They're there to be the inferior bird that other trainers have, so you can beat them with your bird. Ekans is Snake backwards. I actually really like Arbok. Arbok has a great design. His moveset really suits him. And the farther we get away from absolute psychic move and ground move and earthquake supremacy, the better he actually does. Also, he has Intimidate, which is a top tier ability, meaning you can if you like his design enough, which I oftentimes do. You can slot him on a team without it completely ruining you. And that's enough to get B tier with his design, in my opinion. Pikachu is a C tier Pokemon. I'm tired of pretending he's not. He is so bad that in Gen 2, if you gave him the Light Orb, he had the second highest special attack in the game, only below Mewtwo. He had the Surf. He could use Surf. He had Surf and Thunderbolt and the second highest special attack and a 90 speed. He had all of those utterly insane things going for him. And he was still terrible. Even then, with only up to Gen 2 Pokemon to compete with. He sucks, okay? He just does. He's also not that interesting a design. He's the one who was friendly and happy. Like, he was the, you know, a katana? You know how it's, like, perfectly balanced? Like, so that, like, the edge is, like, perfectly, like, pointed? If one side of the katana was cuteness to try and attract children's, like, oh my god, that's cute, and the other side was just enough coolness to be like, oh, this is a cool boy, fighting monsters thing. This isn't just cute, whatever. He was the poster child of the original 151 who embodied that katana. Okay? It, yeah, he's not the coolest, interesting, most powerful, or even just the most fun design or the cutest Pokemon. I'd easily argue Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur are way cuter than him, while also being cooler than him. I don't understand how he's the mascot. He sucks. Raichu, on the other hand, absolute legend. A tier Pokemon. I'm not gonna explain why he's A tier. Sandshrew is probably C tier, and I'll give Sand/B tier. They have, as far as being good, they're both fast, relatively speaking, and they have Stab Earthquake. What more do you need? Also, their design, amazing. Give Nidoran, female, and C tier. Nidorina, I will give a D tier. I'm giving an A tier to Nidoqueen. And I want to be clear on this. The only reason I'm not giving her an S tier, despite her being one of my top 10 favorite Pokemon, because my bias says to give her S tier, because I love her. She is usually, like, my main Pokemon in Pokemon Red and Blue. But I understand that the poison typing has crippled her defensively, and that she was a jack of all trades in Gen 1, with all of her statistics being like a step below the highest level for them. But because of power creep, the step below the highest level of power in Gen 1, since the steps of power have increased on each individual stat so much, she's just become a jack of all trades who can't compete in any category. She doesn't do enough damage anymore to hit anything that needs to get hit, and she sure as heck can't survive anymore with her bulk that went from being, oh, this bulk's great, to, oh, this is like average bulk now. I don't like that she can't compete anymore, but I'm not going to lie to you and pretend like she can. I like Nidoran, or Nidorino, way more than Nidorina. I don't know why I dislike Nidorina so much. But even Nidorino, I only give C tier. I think, honestly, I could probably be convinced to give both Nidorans B tier, just on how adorable they are. Nidoking is a high B tier, if not an A tier. I think I would have to give him A tier. It's on the borderline between these two for me, honestly. Pretty much all the same things apply to him as does for Nidoqueen, except that he's a little bit more offensively focused, which allows him to deal a little bit more damage and keep up. Now for Clefairy. Clefairy, if Gen 6 didn't happen, I would be giving Clefairy C tier. Gen 6 happened, I have to give Clefairy B tier. Same for Clefable. As much as Greg is going to be annoyed I didn't put it at A or S tier, Clefable is a B tier. The fairy type alone means they can keep up now. Also, they have decent enough stats to genuinely be good Pokemon. and they've always been a very solid design. I I mean that's pretty simple. Vulpix, C tier. Ninetales, A tier. I say A tier. Give me a second. I'm thinking. Ninetales is at the. We'll say Ninetales is currently the head of the pack for A tier. I kind of want to give it S tier. I'm still thinking about it. We may come back to that. Okay. Jigglypuff is a B tier. Wigglytuff is a C tier. No, I'm gonna do that backwards. I think Jigglypuff is probably the leader of the pack for C tier. Wigglytuff, I do genuinely really like Wigglytuff. I'm giving Zubat and Golbat both C tier. I would be giving their evolution they get an A, if not S tier, just to be clear. I think I'm kind of forgetting that this ranking is only in like comparison with each other, because I might be being a little bit overly harsh on some of them. I'm thinking, just on account of me knowing about the next 8 generations of Pokemon. Um, Oddish and Gloom are D tier. Vileplume's B tier for sure. I'll give both Parasect and Paris a D tier. Same with Venonat and Venomoth. If I'm being completely honest with you, I forget Venonat and Venomoth exist 99% of the time. And I for sure forget that they were part of the first generation. They are I they're just a less interesting Butterfree to me. And like they look like they should be more interesting and they're just not for whatever reason. Diglett gets a B tier and Dugtrio gets a C tier. I feel like an A tier, sorry. C tier for Diglett, A tier for Dugtrio. Dugtrio is like the opposite of Beedrill, where Beedrill can get so high almost exclusively off of his design. Diglett gets A tier almost exclusively off of how good he is. First of all, he was a menace in Pokemon Red and Blue. His incredible speed stat, along with his ground typing for Stab Earthquake, and his, for Gen 1, really good attack stat, he just fucking obliterated things, okay? Especially with the speed tap stat being tied to crit. And as time went on, he just got better with like arena trap and sand teams, and he just never, between his speed, typing, and attack, he never stopped being a completely usable Pokemon. I give Meowth a B, and I give Persian an A. Meowth is way cooler than Pikachu. I'm sorry. He's also a lot more fun, and he has a unique attack called Payday, which is just really cool. Persian is a... Persian... Meowth and Persian did it right. Meowth starts on 2 feet, Persian gets on all 4s. We want the big lion cats to be on all 4s. Stop making them bipedal. I might be ranking Persian higher than I would otherwise, but between just the recent gens, like Litten becoming a luchador pissed me the hell off. I'm not gonna lie with you. That being said, Persian was an absolute menace because of his speed stat allowed Slash to crit every single time in first gen, and it was stab. So with just Slash, he could pretty much 2 or 3 shot any other Pokemon other than like rock types with high defense. He hasn't kept up very well, but his design and his usefulness, which is 2 of the metrics that I'm using to judge them on, Very solid. Psyduck. Psyduck is a B tier because of his design, his just iconicness he is, how good he is in Little Cup. Golduck is a C. Golduck isn't you like Psyduck useful in Little Cup. Golduck, technically stronger, can't hold up to any actually evolved Pokemon. Like, honestly, and also his design, it's not as cute and is not, like, cool enough to offset that to be a better design. And he looks like he should be water psychic, and he's not, which is just disappointing. Mankey and Primeape both suck. First of all, fighting in Gen 1, terrible. Rock is the worst type, probably, for a Pokemon to be. Like, it is the type that most, like, on a strong Pokemon makes it a less strong Pokemon, and on a weak Pokemon makes it completely unusable. The type after that, until, like, Gen 4, was fighting. Gen 4, they get a bunch of good moves and abilities and things that, like, buff fighting type, but before then, one of the worst things you could be was a fighting type. Just completely. Yeah, and also their stats are pathetic, and it's just a little round monkey. I hate it. I don't hate it. I don't like it very much. Clarify. I don't think I hate any of these Pokemon. Like, I've even used a Rattata or a Caterpie on occasion just because I love them all. But in comparison, like, look at Primeape and then look at Raichu or Blastoise or Charizard. I mean, you can't seriously say it compares. That being said, adorable puppy Growlithe is a B tier. Arcanine is an S tier. Arcanine is our first S tier. I'm just now realizing how harsh I've been that this is our first S tier. But yes, our first S tier is going to be Arcanine. Really high attack, really good speed, his design, immaculate. One of the best designed original 151 Pokemon. Easily. Like, there's not even... Yeah, he's really good. He was actually not very good in Gen 1, especially with there being no physical fire moves. After Gen 4, with, like, his Intimidate and his good speed and the stab fire moves, and also his stats total just being, like, a really strong Pokemon, between his holds up getting stronger each generation without any gimmicks of, like, oh, you can make him a Mega and waste your slot in your team if you want to make him usable, like Charizard. He between those two metrics, he is an S tier. And also, even in the first generation, he was still just strong enough that despite his weaknesses, you could use him and get some things done. Poliwag is probably a C tier or a B. Poliwag, I'd say Poliwag is an upper C tier. Poliwhirl is a D tier. Poliwrath is probably a lower C tier. They suffer from, water being a special type and being a split attacker and not having great defenses and having a bunch of weaknesses, and also they're just stupid looking. But if you make your Poliwag a Politoad, you are based. Okay. We get to the Alakazam line. Abra and Kadabra are both A tier Pokemon. Just design-wise, they're perfect. And in Gen 1, they were the strongest non-legendary psychic types. In Little Cup, Abra fucking decimated everything. Kadabra was so good that the tier, like, the OU tier was like 8 Pokemon in Gen 1, and Alakazam obviously fucked shit up there. The next tier down, underused, where Kadabra was there, Kadabra, a middle form, still one of, if not the top Pokemon in Gen 1. And also, they're so incredibly fast and powerful special attack wise. Kadabra, like, even now, even like having held up, the whole line is still like Abra is still one of the absolute strongest Little Cup guys. Alakazam is still one of the strongest Pokemon, period. Even without his Omega form, which makes him like borderline a legendary. And Kadabra, still a great design, great middle form, and even just as a middle form, even with like 600 Pokemon in Gen 5 or almost 1,000 now in Gen 9, Kadabra can still hold his own in the games. They knocked it out of the fucking park with this one, guys. Let me make the screen, the capture, a little bit low. Okay. There we go. So here are 3 Pokemon who absolutely do not live up to the how good were they in Gen 1. They don't get good until fighting type as a whole gets good in Gen 4. But Machamp's 130 attack and total stat total of like 505 never stopped being good, especially once the fighting type stopped being so tapped. Unfortunately, Machop, I'll give Machop, I give Machop a C tier, and probably Machoke also a C tier. Machoke certainly doesn't have the same kind of quality as Kadabra, where it's like, oh yeah, you can, like, obviously you want Machamp, but you can get by with Machoke. You can get by without it, evolving Kadabra. You need to evolve Machoke to get any kind of use out of Machamp. Also, Machamp's 130 attack, along with the good fighting moves that have come along since then, make him still usable, and also his really high attack for a Gen 1 would have made him usable, if not for Psychic being the strongest type, bar none, in Gen 1. And also, fighting type, with the introduction of Dark type, fighting type became more useful that way. The main thing that holds Machamp back, despite his powerful, like, overall stats and his good attack, is that he's just so slow, and especially not a special, doesn't really have a good special defense, meaning that in the metagame of the newer gens that revolves chiefly around speed, he still is dead in the water. But, another metric, of course, that I mentioned, his defense, or not his defense, his design, sorry, another D word. His design, very good. A tier. They had a whole tower dedicated to Bellsprout, and I'm still gonna give it a C tier. Weeping Bell, not even worth discussing. I genuinely think Victory Bell is a B tier. I did not like Victory Bell at all when I was younger, but every time I've had a Victory Bell since, like in the original games, Victory Bell is so much stronger than I gave him credit for, and his design is a lot cooler than I thought it was. It's just ugly, but, it's a ferocious plant predator thing. I don't, like, I understand I put them both in B tier. I don't think Victory Bell is as good as, a Venusaur, obviously. But I don't think they're a tier apart from each other. And I know that's a hot take, and I'm sorry. We're going to go ahead and put Tentacruel here and Tentacruel C tier. Tentacruel, Poison Water, good special attack, good bulk, decent speed. It's not the strongest design. Also, it's supposed to be a jellyfish. It does not look like a freaking jellyfish, okay? It just doesn't. Geodude and Graveler both gonna fit themselves right down here in D tier. Golem can be also a D. Golem can be in the front of D tier. Worthless. Terrible. Hate him. Really not good. I really don't think their designs are that good. Like, I understand that, like, you know, Rock with Hands isn't far removed from the Beedrill B, but with more spiky things, or Persian, Big Cat, Rock with 4 arms, and then, like, Rock Lizard thing. But they just, you know what? Actually, I talked myself into it. Golem can be in C tier. You know, he still has Stab, Earthquake, and really high defense, and a good attack. No special defense, really slow. But I think as I was looking at his design, he gets into C tier based on design. How many more do I have to go? I feel like my goal of not having this be as long is I'll next time I do a tier list, I'll do one with like 12 things. Anyway, Ponyta, amazing design. B tier. Rapidash is gonna go ahead and be Rapidash is gonna be an A tier. Almost exclusively based on design. They have the same problem that, like, Arcanine had, where there wasn't physical fire moves, despite them being spec'd into almost exclusively physical attack. But they're really fast and have a really high a really good physical attack. And they look amazing. Horse, but is on fire. Great starting point. Pulled it off great. It's good. Slowpoke is a B tier. Slowbro is also a B tier. Now, I want to explain a very crucial difference. Slowpoke is B tier because of its design. It's a simple design, but it's adorable and has enough charm and personality that, based on design alone, it only needs to do okay in Little Cup for me to like it. It obviously does pretty good in Little Cup. Not just okay. But it only needed to do that much to get into B tier. On the other hand, I don't love Slowbro's design, really. But he's just so good. Especially in red, blue, and yellow. He is one of the big 7 in red, blue, and yellow. His design pulls him. You know what? He's honestly so good that even with my reservations about his design, he is A tier. I feel like I'm capping when I try to put him in B tier. Like, I apologize. Please don't kill me. He is A tier. Magnemite. Magnemite and Magnetron. First of all, really dumb evolution. Second of all, not that great. Until Gen 2, when they get Seal typing, and even then, they're merely pretty freaking good. And the one who's really good, Magnezone, isn't in the original 151. So, if Crobat wasn't enough to get Zubat and Golbat out of C tier, Magnezone isn't enough to get them out of D tier. I'm sorry. Another D tier. Uh, Farfetch'd. Sorry. I kept wanting to call him Don Patch, because I always call it Don Patch or Dux, D-U-X. And I forgot what he was actually called for a split second there. But yeah, no, he's terrible. Completely borderline unusable. Even his evolution is merely okay. And that came 7 generations later. Doduo, C tier. Dodrio, B tier. Dodrio, incredibly fast, incredibly strong physically. Hits with stab, drill pack, drill pack? I think it's drill pack, yes. Has Tri Attack as like one of its main moves, especially when it was physical. Can still fly, despite not having flying feathers and being based off a flightless bird. Very based. Fuck the rules of nature. It's a great design. It has been the home of many, many, many good memes. It is a B tier Pokemon. Everyone likes him. Seal is a D tier. Seal is a D tier. Dugong is a C tier. Dugong might be my favorite C tier Pokemon. I really like Dugong in the TCG. In the video games, which obviously this is based on because I play the video games on my channel, he and Seal are both a horn away from being scientifically downgraded to animals, as Mr. One-Ups would say. Also, Seal, the seal Pokemon, is based on a seal, and you're like, oh, Dugong. Dugongs, aren't, Dugong's different than the name Seal. No, there's an actual animal called a Dugong, and it looks like Dugong. They just named the seal Pokemon Seal and Dugong Dugong, and I'm like 80% sure that actual Dugongs also have horns. This is just an animal. Muck is creepy. I hate him. C tier. And also, I've said that for Grimer. Grimer, creepy, C tier, just a pile of sludge. Muck, same thing, but somehow B tier for me. He's just a huge, disgusting pile of sludge. He's literal pollution. He's made out of poison. He just exists to absorb and kill things. I hate him, but I love him. B tier. Shelter, C tier. Cloyster, pretty respectably high B tier in my opinion. Incredible defense, good typing. Once it gets skill link, it's an absolute menace. It just is a really cool spiky shell Pokemon with a cool, like, evil looking face. It's a good one. Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar are pretty much rewind the video to whenever I was talking about Abracadabra and Alakazam, because I feel the exact same about Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar. Absolutely perfect line of Pokemon, no flaws, very, very strong, very, very well designed. Ghastly looks cool as hell, Haunter looks cool as hell, Gengar's amazing, he's the perfect, like, sometimes he looks scary as hell and it's amazing, and sometimes he's just this chubby little buddy and he's adorable. Either way, 10 out of 10 perfect. Also, incredible stats. Really good typing, honestly. It wasn't as good in Gen 1, typing-wise, but it was so strong that it was still one of the strongest Pokemon. Despite being weak to Psychic, the most powerful type, it could still stand up and get some shit done. And now that Psychic's been taken down at least 11 pegs, it's so good. Onyx is the worst Pokemon. No more discussion needed. I mean, unironically, might be the worst Pokemon even into Gen 9. uh, a couple of more D tier fellas with Hypno and Baby Hypno. What the fuck is the first? What is the first Hypno? What is the first form of Hypno called? I don't even remember. Anyway, they're terrible despite being Psychic type. They were pretty good. Their stats are lackluster. Their designs are creepy. They're paralysis demons. Their designs are paralysis demons. The lore, they literally steal children. There's literally a Gen 5 little girl who gets stolen by a Hypno. They're terrible. Krabby is a crab. C tier. Kingler is a crab. A tier. No, I will not elaborate. Voltorb, C tier. Electrode, D tier. Voltorb just looks like he's taking life more seriously. Electrode's too cheeky. He knows he's the fastest in Gen 1, but he immediately loses that title. Also, he sucks. I mean, he's a ball. He's a ball with a face. He's not even the right orientation. At least Voltorb looks like a Pokeball. Electrode's just a bobber. Like a really big bobber for a fishing pole. Execute, bunch of eggs, C tier. Executor, B tier. Despite me not... It's a B tier despite how it being one of the top 7 in the first gen and still being able to keep up in the next few gens because of its Psychic Grass typing being incredibly good. Its design is so stupid, and I do legitimately mean it this time, even with how good it is. Its design is so dumb that I can't give it the A tier its power deserves. It's going to be stuck in B tier, despite being one of the strongest Pokemon in the first generation and continuing to be good. Cubone, C tier. Marowak, also C tier. Too slow and defensively weak, and also typing weak to get much done, despite having a pretty damn good attack, and a ground typing allowing it to hit with Stab Earthquake. Hitmonlee, I would give a B tier, but Hitmonchan, I'm going to give an A tier. I know so many people like Hitmonlee more than Hitmonchan, and I know who they're actually based off now, and I understand that the Japanese kickboxer would beat the hell out of the Japanese punchy guy that their names are named after, and also, you know, Bruce Lee would kick the shit out of Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan's skilled, but he's more of a comedian and an actor, whereas Bruce Lee was literally just like, you know, crazy. I get that. I understand that Hitmonlee is way better for the first few generations because the main thing Hitmonchan has going for him are the elemental punches, so he can hit everything for super effective, but all the elemental punches are special, and he has no special attack. I get that. I don't care. Hitmonchan is a really, really cool, interesting Pokemon, and I do love his gimmick of having the elemental punches and the other punches, the elemental punches to punch everything super effectively. And he gets the punch, like, to just increase that already really cool setup. They give him the Iron Fist ability so he can punch things more effectively. That's just really neat. Lickitung will give a B tier. I do want everyone to note that I think it gets worse when it evolves. Lickitung's fine. Licky Licky sucks. Coughing is a happy C tier, as is Wheezing. They're both poison type and therefore suck, but, you know, they're also, their stats aren't very good at all. But their designs make me happy. Rhyhorn is a C tier. It's not amazing, but its design is really good. Rhydon is an A tier. It's another one that I wish didn't evolve in Gen 4. But its stats are really good, its design is impeccable, and I'm pretty sure either it or Rhyhorn was the first Pokemon actually designed. Chansey is an A tier. The pink egg somehow does it for me. One of my favorite Pokemon ever. All of the health, so good. One of the big 7. Only gets better with time. Eventually gets the fairy type. It didn't even need it. Very good Pokemon, A tier. You know what? I'm gonna give it an S tier. Yeah, Chansey is S tier. Tangela is D tier. Kangaskhan is S tier. Kangaskhan is amazing. Its design is amazing. It's one of the coolest looking normal types ever. It has really good stats and a really good move pool. It's fun to use. Its baby is adorable. Like its baby, one of the cutest Pokemon. The mama, one of the coolest Pokemon. It's a 2-for-1 package. And both packages are amazing. Horsey and Seadra are D tier. They're some of the most boring water types. And I'm going to be very hypocritical as I give Goldeen and Sea King C tier, despite also being some of the most boring water types. I just like the fish with the horn. They're based on beta fish, which are notoriously really aggressive, which goes with their high attack stat, high being relative here. I like their move pool, and I just think they're cool. Staryu is going to be a C tier. Starmie is going to be an A tier. Honestly, Staryu is actually going to... No, Staryu is going to be a B tier. I like Starmie way better than Staryu. Starmie, one of the big 7. Starmie is the strongest water type in the first generation. And because it's water psychic, it continues to be incredibly powerful. It never stops being good. It is one of the best, most solid Pokemon all round in every generation. Its design looks awesome, as rad as hell. I'm giving Starmie an S tier, actually. It's one of the most all-around good Pokemon with one of the best designs. It's good. Mr. Mime's getting a D tier. It's good, but I hate him. I mean, look at him. Scyther's getting an A tier. He's not very good, but I love him. He has an incredibly solid design. He's probably the coolest bug type in the first generation. Maybe he's in competition with Beedrill for that, in my opinion. Jinx, hater. She's terrible. Electabuzz, C tier. I mean, as far as usability, mid-tier electric type, not very good. Actually, probably low-tier electric type if you don't include non-fully evolved Pokemon. His design is interesting, but he's just completely useless. And his as interesting as his design is, it doesn't excite me. It's not it's overly complicated while still feeling like it's not enough. Like, either he needed more or they needed to tone him down, in my opinion. Magmar is probably the absolute worst fire type in the first generation, who isn't other than the ones who aren't fully evolved yet. Magmar, not good stats. His design's kind of cool, but I feel like his design with, the tail on fire like Charizard somehow looks less cool because Charizard exists, giving him, direct comparison to one of the coolest Pokemon, period. Like, I think that makes him less cool somehow. Just because your mind's always comparing him to Charizard. Especially with that anime episode. Like, I feel like if Charizard didn't exist, Magmar would probably be a B tier. But because Charizard exists, and you can't look at him without seeing off-brand Charizard, he is a C tier to me. Pinsir is a B tier, and Tauros is an A tier. Other than the legendary Pokemon, Tauros is the strongest Pokemon in Red, Blue, Yellow. Also, he is a timeless design, incredibly cool, great stats. I just love him. Magikarp is a B tier. Magikarp is supposed to be the useless Pokemon, and yet his stats are actually considerably higher than half the, like, of many, many unevolved Pokemon now. And now he's allowed to learn moves. He's unironically a lot stronger than a lot of other unevolved Pokemon. Also, iconic, and probably one of the best shinies. Speaking of best shinies, unironically really good, Gyarados is an S tier. Gyarados started good in the first generation, and only continuously gets better. He's one of the strongest, like, most reliable, strongest Pokemon that you can get the earliest. Never a bad choice. Incredible attack, incredible bulk. Typing allows him to hit with water moves as Stab. In the first generation, he had 100 special, which means he had 100 special attack. Also, he can learn fire moves, despite being a water type, so he can hit grass type super effectively. The only thing slowing him down is electric types. And though electric types have become considerably less people, there are a lot before in the early generations everyone had an electric type. Now, electric types, while far from being like underutilized, not nearly as prevalent. Gyarados can get in. Also, eventually they gave Gyarados Dragon Dance, which made him a monster. Lapras, comfortable A tier. Huge bulk, great design, Loch Ness Monster, the premier Pokemon you surf around on. Ice type, Stab, Blizzard, Stab, Ice Beam, amazing. Ditto, B tier. Everyone has a Ditto. Once they got the Imposter ability, they became actually very interesting. Having Transform be his unique move is really cool. If he had a higher health stat, he'd be incredible. Eevee is an A tier. Everyone loves Eevee. Probably the go-to first form Pokemon that is legitimately worth the hype that it gets. The fact that, like, Let's Go Pikachu had Let's Go Eevee, and anyone chose Pikachu, boggles my mind. Vaporeon, almost ruined by a copy pasta. However, still an A tier, incredibly high health, is an EV evolution, is adorable, has incredibly solid stats. All around, really, really, really good. Jolteon is an S tier. Jolteon being so incredibly fast and having such an incredibly high special attack, while also being electric type to get Stab Thunderbolts, one of the best move anyway. Jolteon is probably in the top 5 best electric types, statistically, even up to Gen 9, not including legendaries. Not including legendaries, Jolteon was bar none, the best electric type for the first 4 generations, and maybe even longer than that before he got someone who could even compete with him for that title. Flareon's my favorite Pokemon. I'm going to give it an S tier. Here's the thing. It's not good, statistically. Its attack is tremendous, 130. Its special attack, just as good as Jolteon's, 110. Unfortunately, it's slow, has no defenses, and its defensively fire is weak to a lot of things. So it's dead in the water. Even making him basically completely useless in Gen 1 because there were no physical fire attacks. And even in Gen 4, when there were physical fire attacks, they didn't give Jolteon any of the good physical fire attacks. However, one of the metrics is design. Since I am using the design as a metric, and unequivocally, Jolteon, in my opinion, is the best designed Pokemon. Period. It is the most appealing to me aesthetically. It looks adorable. It looks like it is the best thing to cuddle ever. I would have 12 if Pokemon were real. Okay? They look majestic. They're amazing. If you're into cool things, Fox who can shoot fire and looks like he has flames, very cool. If you're into cute things, adorable fluffy fox, adorable. If you're into suave things, its slender body with tufts of fluff make it look like it's very majestic. It is just perfect aesthetically from every perceivable preference, unless you don't like the color red. That is literally the only possible preference aesthetically you could have in which Jolteon just wouldn't be the best Pokemon aesthetically. I am 100% biased on this. I do not care. Porygon, C-tier Pokemon, first computerized Pokemon, probably got less cool over the ages as more and more man-made Pokemon came out, and they all looked amazing. He's like the prototype for every good man-made Pokemon. Lord Helix honestly gets a D tier. I kind of know I want to give him a higher rating because of the Lord Helix meme. But no one gave a shit about Ammonite before that. Ammonite does not survive on his own 4 tentacles. Twitch Plays Pokemon will not change this. However, Kabuto and Kabutops, very different story. Very looks cool, looks like a little assassin bug. Look at this thing. Borderline. See, here's another case of a Pokemon getting a tier below because you're constantly comparing them to a better Pokemon. If Scyther didn't exist, I promise you he's an A tier. Aerodactyl, solid B tier. Snorlax is an S tier. Snorlax is an amazing design. He's a big bear, big chubby bear, adorable. Statually, incredible. His bulk and attack and move pool, one of the best Pokemon going. He was one of the top 7 in the first generation. In Gold and Silver, he was the strongest Pokemon. Period. People make legitimate arguments that he was stronger than, Mewtwo and Lugia in Generation 2. And even though he's fallen flat, he's fallen from those lofty heights, he's still incredibly... a Snorlax is a good Pokemon as a defensive pivot with his special defense and his bulk and his ability to threaten things physically with his own attacks and huge move pool. every team can benefit from having him as their defensive pivot. Articuno is another S tier. It's I mean, its design, he is the best looking of the three legendary birds. It's not even close. Also, he's majestic, he's cool looking. He has a really good special attack and a good speed that allows him to hit things with Stab Ice Beam and Stab Blizzard. He is very cool. I don't know. I don't have a whole bunch of history on him because I don't follow Ubers as much as I follow OU. And he's in OU, so I don't even know why I mentioned that. But anyway, I think statistically he falls behind where the others in S tier other than Flareon. But he's so cool, and I feel like when you're not playing by like competitive rule sets, he is like for ordinary battles incredibly powerful. Zapdos, very high 8, like a very comfortable A tier. He's statistically much better than Articuno. Design-wise, not nearly as interesting, and type-wise, a little just less. I don't know how to word it. I feel like ice flying is more interesting than electric flying. I also feel like there are way less ice types who aren't also water types or mainly water types than there are electric types who aren't another type specifically. And also, I don't think any ice Pokemon in the first few generations outclass Articuno really. I could argue that Jolteon is better than Zapdos. So it has stiffer competition. Moltres, though, is a B tier. I think Moltres is cool. Its design, however, is the weakest of the birds. Its usefulness, the weakest of the birds. And its typing, the weakest of the birds. It is a B tier. It is solidly below the other two legendary birds. Dratini, B tier. Incredibly adorable little dragon guy. I love him, he's a little squiggle. Dragonair, incredible. A tier Pokemon. Okay? One of the most solid designs of any mid-stage Pokemon. He's also, him and Dratini are both benefiting from this, from being the only dragon type in the 151, with dragon type being pretty much the coolest looking type. Dragonite's gonna be an S tier for me, folks. The original pseudo-legendary and the first ever dragon. Yeah, he's an S tier. More than that, having the highest physical attack of the first generation and just being all around incredibly good. Yeah, he's an S tier. Okay, now we're at the easy two. I'm just gonna I'll make this quick. Mewtwo and Mew, both S tiers. The original ultimate legendaries. Mewtwo is in my mind and in the mind of anyone who started Pokemon with Gen 1, probably the strongest Pokemon ever. He is the strongest Pokemon. There are other Pokemon with higher stats than him, but no other Pokemon embodies the true, sheer sense of unmatched might as Mewtwo. Incredibly cool design, incredibly cool typing, incredibly cool motivations and backstory. incredibly powerful. Even when he's not the strongest, his versatility as a man-made entity designed to be the strongest ultimate Pokemon has often led to him having a huge variety of moves that he can use to get the upper hand on technically more powerful opponents in Ubers. And Mew is the ultimate the ultimate jack of all trades. Usually it's jack of all trades, master of none, but Mew has 100 base stats in every single stat. It is on the it is in the upper echelon. Like for the first generation, he was like on the highest tier for every stat. And even now, he's like if you were ranking only based on stats, he's like a B plus tier in every single stat, and he can learn every single TM. Meaning, depending on how you EV and IV train him, there's no way you can prepare for Mew. Is this Mew a setter? Is this Mew going to build up and then baton pass? Is this Mew gonna like build up and kick my ass with special attacks or physical attacks? Or does he have a bunch of moves to like put me to sleep and give me paralysis? Does he have like spikes or stealth rock? Or you don't know. You can never prepare for a Mew, and he is powerful enough to shirk off hits, and he is powerful enough that depending on how he's built, he can take down any other Pokemon. So just like when someone switches him in, the unknown factor is you have to play around it carefully, and also he's adorable. He's one of the cutest Pokemon ever, and he's the origin of all life, all Pokemons. He's the first one. Very cool backstory. Very cool Pokemon. Anyway, this was my original 151 Pokemon tier list. I hope you enjoyed.